Today's submission is a commentary piece exploring the phenomenon of method act, specifically examining why it's predominantly associated with male actors and whether it often serves as an excuse for inappropriate on-set behavior.
Right.
But before analyzing those gender dynamics, we really need to look at how the piece defines the term itself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the author kind of lumps all these vastly different actors together into one single category.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking Daniel Day-Lewis, Jared Leto, Dustin Hoffman, Natalie Portman. It's like calling anyone who drives recklessly a professional stunt driver, you know? There is a difference between a trained technique and just acting out behind the wheel.
That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered that a clearer boundary between the actual craft of method acting and the sensationalized media narratives of bad behavior would significantly elevate this analysis.
Yeah, I think that distinction is missing right now.
Exactly. Because the weakness here is that the current material conflates historical acting techniques with, PR stunts and on-set harassment.
Right.
It treats Jared Leto's disruptive behavior, mailing a live rat, and Dustin Hoffman's boundary crossing, like slapping Meryl Streep, as the exact same core practice as Daniel Day-Lewis's immersive focus.
Which kind of accidentally validates the toxicity they're trying to critique.
Totally. So the suggestion is to separate the analysis into two distinct categories right away. You have the internal psychological tool, which is what Day-Lewis defends, versus the external weaponization of the term, which is just used to shield massive egos.
Okay. Yeah. So what does that look like in practice for the writer?
Well, for concrete examples, when bringing up Leto's Joker, the author should explicitly challenge the Hollywood PR machine that sells his antics as method, rather than just accepting it at face value.
Oh, right. Because it's largely marketing.
Exactly. Contrast Leonardo DiCaprio's instant, animatronic snap into character with Lady Gaga's 18-month accent. You can frame Gaga's approach as potentially a marketing tool for the film, rather than a strict methodology.
Wow, yeah. That is a great point. Okay, so having separated the technique from the excuse, we can now look at who is actually allowed to use this excuse in Hollywood. Let's look closely at the section discussing the gender dynamics.
Yeah, this part was interesting.
Right? We get this quote from Anya Taylor-Joy about having things to take care of on set, and Kristen Stewart talking about method acting being an unmasculine defense mechanism.
Really strong quotes.
But then the author assumes Taylor-Joy meant menstrual cycle. Is there a risk that focusing solely on biological assumptions like menstrual cycles might overlook the stronger sociological point being made here?
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of how the exploration of why women rarely engage in method acting misses a profound opportunity to examine industry power dynamics and the uneven distribution of emotional labor on set?
Oh, that's a much better angle.
Right? Because the weakness is that the material undermines its own momentum by pivoting to this bizarre and, frankly, reductive biological assumption.
Yeah, suggesting she meant menstrual cycles is just...
It completely ignores the explicit context she provided. She was talking about the social responsibility of being good to the hundreds of people working on a production.
Like not holding up the crew's lunch or stressing out the makeup artist.
Exactly. So the suggestion here is to refocus the gender analysis strictly on social expectations. Contrast the male privilege of being difficult for the sake of art with the female expectation to be, accommodating, professional, and socially responsible.
Which ties directly back to Kristen Stewart's point, right?
Yes, absolutely. For a concrete example, expand on Stewart's brilliant insight about method acting being a male defense mechanism against the vulnerability of performing.
Because acting is inherently vulnerable. You're playing pretend.
Right. And then contrast that with Taylor-Joy's point. Women do not have the luxury to be unapproachable tyrants on set without facing immediate career-ending backlash.
Whereas men are often rewarded with Oscars for the exact same behavior.
Exactly. It's about power and who is allowed to take up space.
Okay, so we've clarified the definition, and we've sharpened the thematic arguments about gender dynamics. Now it's about organizing all that. Okay, so what I really like about this part is the sheer wealth of examples the author gathered.
Oh yeah, the research is great.
But they jump rapidly from modern actors back to Hoffman, then forward to Carey, then end on unverified rumors. It just dilutes the impact.
That makes sense, but could the evidence also support a different conclusion? Like reorganizing the case studies, either chronologically or thematically, will transform this piece from a casual collection of anecdotes into a compelling, airtight thesis.
A thematic structure. Yeah, I like that.
Because the weakness right now is the pacing. It just throws examples out at random.
Yeah, bouncing from Portman's prep to Day-Lewis's method to Hoffman's bad behavior.
Right, and culminating in a weak, unverified rumor about Margaret Qualley's divorce, which completely diffuses the essay's critical punch.
They probably just needed a female example and grasped at straws.
Totally. So the suggestion is to group the examples into a clear 3-act thematic structure: the ideal, the corruption, and the deconstruction.
Oh, that breaks it down perfect. What goes in Act 1?
So for concrete examples, start Act 1 with Daniel Day-Lewis to establish what the craft is actually supposed to be.
The baseline of professional method acting.
Right. Then use Act 2 to introduce Leto, Carey, and Hoffman as the corruption and weaponization of that ideal.
Like faking the process externally for prestige?
Exactly.
Finally, dedicate Act 3 to the counter-movement, using Stewart and Taylor-Joy to deconstruct the phenomenon.
And what about the ending? Because that rumor about Qualley's divorce has got to go.
Oh, definitely cut that. End the piece on the powerful, undeniable contrast between Leto's rat-mailing and DiCaprio's professional snap into character. Right, true talent doesn't require collateral damage.
Exactly. It drives the thesis home without relying on weak tabloid gossip.
So just to recap the 3 main takeaways for the listener. First, draw a sharp line between genuine acting techniques and PR-friendly toxic behavior. Second, elevate the gender analysis to focus on systemic power dynamics rather than biological assumptions. And third, reorganize those rich examples into a thematic 3-act structure to maximize the argument's impact.
The raw materials here are fantastic. We warmly encourage you to implement these high-level editorial shifts. We would love to see how this piece evolves, so please revise your work and submit it back into the critique for us to look at again.